officially nag-start. Okay, naka-record na tayo. Thank you for reminding me na kailangan naka-record tayo. I forgot. Okay. Wait lang ha. May print lang akong sandali. Okay. Kamusta naman yung week nyo? Okay lang naman. It's okay. Okay naman, sir. Okay. So, okay lang yan. I know, stress tayo. Kahit ako nga, drinap ko ng ano ko. Nagma-masters actually ako ngayon. Tapos na-stress rin ako sa teacher ko. So, drinap ko na lang siya. Sabi ko, ayoko na, pangatlong beses na kita. Third time ko na siya maging teacher. Sobrang daming requirements. Tapos di talaga marunong magturo. So, na-stress ako. Drinap ko ng class niya. So, ngayon, relax na ako ng konti. Oy, pero wag niyo ako i-drop ha. Baka mamaya i-drop niyo yung class natin. Wag naman. Okay. So, again, what are the allowable deductions? So, actually, gumawa ako ng acronym. Okay? So, meron tayong CBTL, 1 Pride. Okay. Ito yung mga itemized deductions. So, actually, di ba, there are two types of deductions. Meron tayong itemized and meron tayong optional. What do we mean by itemized? Ito yung may specific listing kung ano-anong mga allowed as deductions. So let's discuss this one by one. Okay. Do I have any volunteers first before I call on people to discuss give me one item. Okay. Ano ang rule? So bale, when I call you, I want you to tell me what are the rules for that deduction. Okay. Kailan siya or what are the necessary requirements in order for it to be considered as a deduction. Okay. Does anyone want to volunteer first?
Hello, sir.
Sino to?
Si Keo, sir.
Sige, kayo.
Sir, for isang allowable deduction is interest po or interest expense.
Okay, sige. Go ahead.
First, there must be a valid indebtedness.
Joanne? Okay, sige. Go.
Tapos, the indebtedness must be that of the taxpayer, such as the corporation or the individual taxpayer po.
Okay.
Tapos, the indebtedness must be connected with the trade of the taxpayer or his or her business po.
Okay.
Tapos, interest expense must have been paid during the taxable year.
Yes.
Tapos, it must be legally due. Dapat due siya, sir. Ay, legal siya, sir. It legally due. Tapos, interest must have been written or stated in writing po. Tapos, interest payments must not be between related taxpayers. Tapos, the interest is not expressly disallowed by law to be deducted. And in case of interest incurred in the acquisition of property, business or profession, the same is not treated as a capital and expenditure po.
Okay, thank you for that. So
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so thank you for that. May na-miss out lang si Keo. Okay, when it comes to the rules on deducting interest. Meron bang gustong mag-add? Oh, pag wala ako tatawag ha. Sige, Andres. Okay, Andres.
Sir, ayun, ito, yung kwan ba, sir, yung interest must not be incurred to finance petroleum operations?
No.
Okay po.
May iba lang akong hinanap na word.
Sige po. Sorry, sir. Thank you.
Sino to? Si Andres.
Sir, ito ba yung interest is not expressly disallowed by law to be deducted from gross income of the taxpayer?
No, yung may limit, 'di ba? There's a limit on how much interest can be deducted.
Ay yung sa arbitrary limit, sir?
Yes, paano kino-compute yung limit niya?
Yung corporate income tax rate deducted by final tax on interest income divided by corporate income tax rate.
Okay. So, bakit kailangan i-deduct yung interest income? O bakit?
Sabi
Why
nga,
is there a limit?
kasi the limit is intended to recover the tax savings of taxpayers who take advantage of higher regular tax savings created from interest expense deduction and a lower final tax on deposit interest income. For the taxpayers, sir, not to take advantage of the deduction, sir.
Okay, sige, sige. Thank you for that,
Thank you, sir.
Miss Andres. Okay. So actually, when it comes to interest expense, lahat ng rules na sinabi ni Keo are true and correct. Okay. However, what are the specific rules? Again, we have 10 items here. Kindly take note na lang. Of course, dapat valid siya. Dapat utang siya ng taxpayer. Aside from all of that, assuming all of these are legal and all of the requirements are met, okay, all of the 10 requirements are met, typically interest expense will be qualified or will be allowed to be claimed. Okay? However, ang importanteng point dito is that when it comes to interest expense, okay, there is a limit on how much we could claim. So, ibig sabihin, hindi mo daw pwedeng i-claim yung buong amount, but rather, there's a portion of the interest na kung saan yun lang yung pwedeng mong i-claim. You cannot claim the entire amount, but rather, it is subjected to a specific limit. So, ano tong limit na to? So, the limit actually is this one. The amount of deductible expense or interest expense is reduced by the following percentage in interest income. So, ibig sabihin binabawasan siya na o binabawasan natin by 33% ng interest income. Okay, this is what we call the arbitrary limit or arbitrary cap. So bakit ginagawa to? Typically, this is to ensure that any tax savings made from interest expense would be limited or there's a limit. Bakit binibigyan ng limit or bakit ginagawa to ng government? This is to ensure that hindi naman masyadong ma-maximize or on the part of the taxpayer, di masyadong maximize yung amount na interest expense na na-claim mo. Okay, bakit gusto ng government na ganito? Again, this falls down towards the collectivity of the government. Di ba? Pag malaki yung expense mo, malilit lang yung makolekta. So therefore, nag-i-impose sila ng limit, which is this arbitrary limit. Okay? So, paano ba natin kino-compute to? Of course, di na natin, will not focus too much on these requisites, ha? Kindly take note na lang. It's very simple naman. Okay, ano ng mga requisites? So, paano ba natin to kino-compute? So, let's have an example illustration. A taxpayer incurred an interest expense of 100,000 pesos and earned 10,000 pesos interest income during the year. So, magkano din deductible interest expense niya? So, it is computed as follows. Gross interest expense, 100,000 pesos, less yung arbitrary limit. 10,000 times 33%, meron tayong 33. So, babawasan natin. Yung pwede na lang niya i-claim na deductible interest expense amounts only to 96,700 pesos. So, ibig sabihin, binabawasan ng interest income ang interest expense na meron ka. Okay, so this means that the more you earn or the more you have or the more your earning capacity or the more interest income you have, okay, therefore the more or mas konti na lang yung pwede mo i-claim against your interest expense. Okay, so that's it when it comes to interest. So thank you for that, Keo and Miss Andres. Okay, can we proceed on to the second one? Tapos na tayo sa taxes, tapos na tayo sa interest. Okay. Can anyone, okay. Good, may nagpa-participate. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Raise your hand lang, raise your hand. Sige, si Miss Rubio. Miss Rubio, let's go on to taxes
Losses,
siguro.
sir.
Sige, Miss Rubio.
Okay, sir. Sa losses na lang po, sir. Okay,
Sige.
so losses. Losses actually sustained during the taxable year and not compensated by insurance or other indemnity shall be allowed as deductions. So we have 5 requisites for the deductions of losses. First, it must be incurred in trade, profession, or business of the taxpayer. So meaning the loss must be a business loss, not a personal loss. Second, it must pertain to property connected with trade, business, or profession. If the loss arises from fire, storms, shipwrecks, or other casualties, or from robbery, theft, or embezzlement, the loss must be an ordinary loss. Third, the loss must not be compensated by insurance or indemnity contract. So the loss must be actually sustained, not temporary. Fourth, a declaration of loss must have been filed by the taxpayer within 45 days from the date of discovery of the casualty or robbery, theft, or embezzlement giving rise to the loss. And lastly, fifth, the loss must not have been claimed as a deduction for estate tax purposes in the estate tax return. Double deduction is not allowed. Yun po, sir. So we have types of losses. We have ordinary loss and capital loss.
Okay, thank you for that, Miss Rubio. Okay, when it comes to losses naman, it's very simple. Okay? And clear naman on how losses are to be deducted. Okay, so ano bang rules when it comes to losses? Okay, wait lang ah. Let's go on sa taxes. Okay. Okay, so for losses, again, the requisites, of course, it must be incurred in the trade, business, or profession. It must be, or it must have arise from fire, storms, shipwrecks, and other casualties. Okay, it must be an ordinary loss. Okay, number two, if hindi dapat siya compensated, paano pag compensated siya? Di mo na pwedeng i-claim yung loss. Bakit? Kasi pag claim siya or nabayaran siya, ibig sabihin wala ka ng loss kasi covered ka na by insurance. Of course, dapat na file, you must have filed the loss with the BIR or with the government, and it must be kapag may loss, di allowed sa estate tax return. Okay? So, when it comes to losses, meron tayong dalawa, ordinary loss and capital loss. So, what's the difference? Ordinary loss refers to loss from the ordinary sale of assets, while capital loss refers to the loss incurred from the sale of capital assets. Okay. So, if na remember nyo what's the difference between capital, if sorry, if you remember what's the difference between ordinary capital assets and ordinary assets. So ordinary assets are those assets that are used in business, trade, or profession, while capital assets that are not considered as ordinary. Okay, so losses from ordinary assets are considered in the course of trade or business and therefore deductible in full. Meanwhile, losses of capital assets are deemed by law unnecessary expense, hence are only deductible up to the extent of capital gains. Okay, so ibig sabihin, pag may capital loss or capital loss ka, hindi siya deductible in its entirety but rather up to the capital gains lamang. Okay, so thank you for that, Ms. Rubio. Very clear and concise. Wait lang ah. Very
You're
clear and
welcome,
concise
sir.
explanation. Okay. So, let's have an example para mas maintindihan natin. So, a taxpayer engaged in farming incurred the following losses. Loss on destruction of residence by a storm, loss on sale of old farm equipment, loss on assignment of receivables to a bank, purchase cost of a building during uh, purchase cost a bull lost during a storm, and value of animal offspring killed by black lead disease. Okay. So what are the following deductible losses? So isa-isayin natin. Okay. Etong residence, of course, this is what we call a capital loss. Therefore, hindi siya uh, allowable deduction but rather may limit siya. Okay. Bakit? Kasi residence to, tinitirahan natin. So, hindi siya automatically deducted. Next, loss on sale of farm equipment. So, of course, itong farm equipment, ginagamit natin to sa business. So, therefore, deductible siya. Loss on assignment of receivables, okay? Loss on assignment of receivables to a bank. So this is not ano to? This is not directly allowable, okay? But rather depende sa nature. Since it's not clear yet kung anong type of receivable ba to, okay? So it's not yet entirely ano to? Ito, this is for the kapag nag-assign ka, this is not considered as a loss, okay? It's a different type of loss. Okay? Then purchase cost of a bull. So itong bull ano to? It's a male cow, okay? Or a male type of cow. So nawala daw siya during the storm. So therefore, for the business naman siya, okay? So 30,000. And value of animal offspring killed by black leg disease. So itong offspring, okay? Value of animal offspring. Okay. So I think dito bakit hindi to nakasali is because yung animal offspring is not yet considered or di pa siya naging part of the farm. Okay? So if we relate or if we go back to our discussions on uh, past 40, okay, biological assets, hindi pa to siya kinonsider in most cases. Kaya 80,000 lang yung deductible losses. Okay. So, any questions or clarifications on this example? Okay. So, again, when it comes to example of deductible ordinary losses, ito yung loss of disposal of ordinary asset, loss due to voluntary removal, and abandonment loss. Of course, meron din tayong permanent or irreversible loss in values. So, anong rules natin when it comes to replacement of destroyed property? Meron tayong total destruction, excuse me, and meron tayong partial deduction, all destruction of properties. So what happens pag may total destruction at partial destruction tayo? So if the restoration involves total replacement of the property, okay, the tax basis of the old property shall be claimed as a loss. Okay, so in case daw ni-replace mo yung buong property, yung total value ng old property ang i-consider natin as a loss. Okay? While the replacement cost is capitalized. Meanwhile, pag partial destruction lang, so example, may bahay ka at nasira lang partly, okay, at ni-reconstruct mo siya, so magkano din yung loss natin? So the restoration cost shall be expensed up to the extent of the tax basis of the property immediately before its causality. Any excess is capitalized. Okay, so example, in this case, may property ka daw worth 1 million. Nagkaroon ng damage, naging 700,000 na lang yung value niya. At pinaayos mo ng 400,000. Okay? So yung 300,000 yun ang magiging loss, yung 100,000 is i-capitalize natin. Okay? Okay? So that's it for the rules on losses. Okay. So thank you for that. Let's now go on to the next one. So meron tayong tapos na tayo sa losses, tapos na tayo sa interest. Okay. Sige, sino yung unahin natin?
Sir? Ako, sir.
Wait, don't chat. Huwag kayong mag-voice masyado kasi I'll just call someone. Okay, Usman.
Hi, sir.
Sige.
So yung another form of deduction, sir, sa gross income is yung bad debts.
Okay, sige.
So bad debts refers to debts due to the taxpayer which were actually ascertained to be worthless. So itong sentence na itong part po ng sentence na actually ascertained to be worthless, yan yung highlight kung bakit siya deductible na sa gross income and were charged off within the year. So what are the requisites of claim for deduction of bad debt? So first, the debt must have been ascertained to be worthless. Second, it must be charged off within the taxable year. Third, it must be connected with the taxpayer's profession, trade, or business. And fourth, the taxpayer must be under the accrual basis of accounting. Fifth, it must not be incurred from a related party. Note that estimated bad debt expense is not deductible in taxation because treated siya as merely as an estimate. Ang deductible na bad debt is yun lang na parang recognized already, uncollectible, and worthless na sa business. So yun, considered na siya as a deductible to the gross income. Yun lang po, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Usman. Okay. Dalawa pala yung Usman dito, no? Okay. Sige. So, when it comes to bad debts, it's very simple lang naman. Kailan magiging deductible ang bad debts? Of course, for tax purposes, bad debts is only deductible pag ascertain na worthless siya. Kailan natin ma-ascertain, di ba? Unlike sa accounting, pag na-deem na natin na uncollectible siya, doon na natin kiniklaim as bad debts. However, for tax purposes, kailangan na ma-ascertain na uncollectible talaga siya. Okay? When do we ascertain na uncollectible na talaga siya? Pag di mo na talaga makokolekta yung amounts or there is no more chance of acquiring the amounts already. Okay? With yung bad debts. So of course, it must have been a certain worthless. So ibig sabihin, possibility of collection is really zero. Okay? Ibig sabihin, wala na talaga. So it must be charged off within the taxable year. It must be connected, okay, with the taxpayer's trade or profession, and kailangan accrual basis tayo. Okay. Di ba naalala nyo, when it comes to accounting, how do we recognize kapag may bad debts? Di ba, ano tayo, what's the entry? Debit, bad debts expense, credit, ano yung credit niya? Allowance for bad debts. Di ba? However, for tax purposes, yung allowance natin or yung pag-recognize natin ng bad debts is not actually allowed for tax purposes. Kailan lamang pwedeng i-claim for tax purposes? Once it is deemed worthless. So, kailan ba nadi-deem worthless for accounting purposes? Pag i-drop off mo na siya sa accounts mo, di ba? What happens pag worthless na yung pag worthless na talaga or di mo na ma-claim yung debt? Okay? Anong entry natin? We remove the entire amount from the books talaga. So we most probably tatanggalin mo yung corresponding ano to? What's the entry pag deemed worthless na siya? Anong debit natin? Naalala nyo pa ba? Hindi ko na rin maalala masyado. Anong entry pag deemed worthless na yung bad debts?
Bad debt expense ata, sir. Tapos allowance for bad debt
No,
expense or
that's
credit.
that's for the usual ano to? That's the usual recognition for the allowance. So, how do we recognize if it's worthless? Anong entry? Tatanggalin na, of course, tatanggalin natin yung corresponding na bad debts. Okay? Wait lang ha. Double check ko. What's the entry? Di ko na maalala yung entry. Okay. Kapag uncollectible lang siya, doon natin i-recognize yung bad debt expense. However, if it's uncollectible na talaga or deemed worthless, that's the time na kailangan natin i-remove from our books yung corresponding receivables. Ano bang entry?
Debits or allowance for doubtful accounts, tapos credit accounts receivable.
Okay, so yun, di ba? Kailangan natin tanggalin yung corresponding allowance at kailangan natin i-recognize na yung corresponding receivable. So if that's the case, that's the time for tax purposes na pwede nating that's the time na pwede nating i-claim as bad debts for tax purposes. Okay, so thank you for that. Okay. So again, madali lang. It's very simple. The rules when it comes to bad debts, pwede mo lamang siyang i-claim as bad debts expense for tax purposes is pag deemed worthless. Kailan siya magiging deemed worthless? Pag yung collectible or collectibility is zero na talaga. Ibig sabihin, di mo na talaga siya makokolekta. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. Meron na tayong tatlo. Okay. We have interest, we have losses, and we have bad debts. Can we have the next one? I'll call on na. Check ko sino dito. May nag-raise. Actually, naka-order to. Okay? Vidal.
Yes, sir.
Sige, go on, Miss Vidal.
Depreciation po.
Sige, go.
So, in the previous year, we discussed depreciation. Pero dito, it means that depreciation, there shall be allowed as a depreciation deduction for a reasonable allowance for the exhaustion and wear and tear, including the reasonable allowance for obsolescence of property used in trade or business. So there are four depreciation methods. First, straight line method. Second, declining balance method. Third, sum of the year digit method. And fourth, any other method which may be prescribed by the Secretary of Finance upon recommendation of the CIR. There are also special rules on depreciation. First, life tenancy to a property, properties held in trust, revaluation on properties, rules on depreciation of passenger vehicles. Ayun lang, sir.
Okay, wait lang. Okay, so actually, when it comes to depreciation, it's very straightforward. Okay, it actually just follows the same depreciation rules for taxation purposes. Okay, or for accounting purposes. Okay, almost the same lang naman sila. There's no major difference. Pag din-depreciate mo siya for accounting purposes, of course, madi-depreciate rin siya for tax purposes. Okay, so saan yun, ha? Losses. Okay. Bad debts. Okay. So depreciation, again, meron tayong methods. We have straight line, declining, double declining actually to. Bakit declining ito? This is double declining, sum of the year's digits, and the other method which is prescribed by the Secretary of Finance. Okay. So when it comes to depreciation, of course, as long as it is reasonable and used in trade or business, maaalaw naman siya. So ano nung di kasali pag when it comes to depreciation? Of course, we need to consider the following. Number one, life tenancy to a property. properties held in trust, revaluation on properties, and rules on depreciation of passenger vehicles. Okay, so for the rest, i-discuss lang natin to. Paano pag may passenger vehicle ka? So typically, passenger vehicles can only be depreciated as long as the value is less than 2.4 million. Take note ha, dapat less than 2.4 million yung value ng vehicle. If it exceeds 2.4 million, hindi na siya pwedeng i-capitalize at hindi na siya pwedeng i-depreciate for tax purposes. Okay? So, pag bumili ka ng kotse, more than 2.4 million siya, non-depreciable na siya for tax purposes. Okay? Bakit? Kasi sinasabi dito ng tax code is that bakit ka bibili ng kotse that is more than 2.4 million? Okay? Unless you are, again, may guys, may caveat. Unless you are engaged in the business that would require you to purchase a car that would extend or that would cost more than 2.4 million. Okay. Of course, another case is di tayo pwedeng ano to? For yachts, helicopters, airplanes, and aircrafts, non-deductible or di natin pwedeng i-claim yung interest or yung depreciation unless engaged tayo or ginagamit natin siya sa operations. Okay. So if it is not used for operations or if it is not the main business, okay, hindi mo pwedeng i-depreciate yung mga items na to. Okay, bakit? Kasi the reason is that why would you need to purchase these items? Okay, or why would you need to have these items or these very expensive things if it is not engaged in your trade or business? Okay. So pag may yate ka, helicopter, airplanes, aircrafts, and other land vehicles which would exceed, okay, regardless kung in-exceed nyo hindi mo pwedeng i-claim unless nasa main line of business siya. So pag negosyo mo, nagpapahiram ka ng helicopter or travel helicopter or plane, of course, allowable siya. Pero if it's not related, of course, di mo pwedeng i-claim. Okay? So yun lang naman ang rules natin when it comes to passenger vehicles. Are there any more questions and clarifications? For properties held in trust, revaluation on properties and life tenancy, kindly take note na lang. Any other questions? Clarifications? Ba't parang iniiwasan nyo yung taxes? Notice ko iniiwasan yung taxes. Okay, tapos na tayo sa interest, losses, bad debts, and depreciation. Okay. So, next, let me call on someone. Saan yan? Okay, Jamasali. Sino pala yung nag-present kanina?
Sir Vidal.
Vidal? Okay, Vidal. Okay,
Opo.
ngayon, sino tinawag ako? Tignan nyo, very short-term memory. Sino yung tinawag ko ngayon?
Masali, sir. Highland.
Okay, Jamasali. Sige, discuss ano. Anong pipiliin mo?
Charitable and other contributions po, sir.
Sige, go ahead.
Okay. Contributions or gifts made to the government or non-government organization, NGOs, may be deducted against gross income. The requisites of claim for deduction on contributions. The done institution must be a domestic institution. No income of the done institution must inure to the benefit of any private stockholder or individual. The contribution must be valued at the tax basis of the property donated. The taxpayer must be engaged in trade or business. The don must issue a certificate of donation, BIR Form 2322, which includes a donor statement of values. If the amount of donation is at least 50,000, the donor shall file a notice of donation to the RDO, which he is registered within 30 days upon the receipt of the certificate of donation. So, donations that fail any of the requisites are non-deductible. Those that meet the requisites are either fully deductible and partially deductible. Deductible subject to limit.
Okay. Wait lang. Okay. Wait. Wait lang. May ayos lang ako. Okay. So when it comes to anong item mo? Sorry. Charitable
Charitable
contribution. Okay. So sabi ng government, okay, pag nagdo-donate ka, of course, i-allow ko yung deductions mo. However, what are the rules when it comes to charitable contributions? Lahat ba ng charitable contributions deductible? Of course not. Okay? There are of course, or there would be certain limits. Okay, so ano tong mga limits when it comes to charitable contributions? Of course, yung mga sinabi ni Miss Jamasali are true and correct. However, I think may mga na-miss out siya. So when it comes to charitable contributions, how do we treat or paano ba yung deductions natin? Of course, number one, dapat it must be or it must not or it no income of the no income of the donee institution must inure to the benefit of any private stockholder or individual, but rather it must become a domestic institution. Furthermore, pag magdo-donate tayo, kailangan may certificate of donation and of course, engage tayo sa trade or business. Furthermore, sino-sino ba yung pwede nating donate or i-donate? So typically, we could donate to the government or any non-government organization that is duly recognized by the Philippine government. So, there are two types of contributions. We have fully deductible, ibig sabihin yung buong amount pwede mong i-deduct, at meron tayong partially or contribution subject to limits. So, sino-sino ba typically ang fully deductible? Of course, number one, donations to the government or any political subdivision. Sabi ng gobyerno, okay, pag magdodonate ka sa amin, of course, any amount idodonate mo dito, pwede nating i-deduct. Okay? So, including GOCCs, and of course, yung mga activities, priority activities din by NEDA. So, sino ba si NEDA? Ito yung National Economic Development Authority. So, as long as nagdo-donate ka at sabi ni NEDA, priority programs to or activities ng gobyerno, of course, the entire amount is deductible. So, meron tayong education, health, youth sports development, human settlements, culture and sports, and economic developments. Number two, fully deductible donations to foreign institutions or international organizations that is recognized by treaties or special laws. Okay. So, and number three is accredited domestic non-government organization. So, as long as you donate to an accredited NGO recognized by the Philippine government, okay, of course, pwede mo or it is deductible in full. So ano namang amounts or sino-sino ang pwede dito as long as registered sila sa DSWD, DOST, Philippine Sports Commission, NCCA at saka CHED, of course, it's deductible. Okay. And that's it for the deductible in full. Okay. Excuse me ha. Hello? Hello? Si tang klase oh. Okay. So, furthermore, ano naman yung subject sa limit? So basically guys, as long as you donate to the government and any of its priority projects, of course, pwedeng you are accredited or pwedeng deductible in full yung donation mo. However, meron din tayong subject to limits. So pag nag-donate ka sa government, okay, tapos hindi siya priority program or priority activity ng gobyerno, of course, subject siya sa limit. Okay? Furthermore, if nag-donate ka sa non-accredited, okay, ibig sabihin hindi siya accredited ng government NGO, okay, for the following: religious, charitable, scientific, youth and sports development, cultural, educational, rehabilitation, and social welfare, of course, deductible siya, however, subject to a limit. So magkano ba yung limit? Okay, please take note. For individuals, it's 10%. For corporations, it's 5%. Ano tong 10 at 5? Okay, so this is based on saan? This is net income before deductions for any contribution. So basically, diniduct mo na lahat ng expenses mo before deductions for contributions. Okay. Tapos multiply mo by 5 at saka 10%. Kung anong matitira, yun ang maximum limit na pwede nating i-deduct. Okay? It's very simple and straightforward ang computation nito. Okay? Are there any more questions here, guys? Questions, clarifications, and or concerns?
None po, sir.
Okay. Sige. So, okay na tayo sa charitable contributions. Please take note ha kung ano-ano allowed at ano-ano hindi allowed. Okay. So, okay na tayo. Meron na tayong interest, meron tayong taxes, meron tayong interest, we have losses, bad debts, charitable contributions, at saka depreciation. So, again, please take note ha, CBTL, 1 pride. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Okay. Saan na yun? Ha? Sige, pandangan.
Sir,
Sige.
taxes, sir.
Oh, yay. Oh, sige. Miss Pandangan, go. Taxes. Kailan magiging deductible ang taxes?
Accordingly, taxes paid or incurred within the taxable year in connection with the taxpayer's trade, business, or exercise of profession shall be allowed as deduction except 1. Philippine income taxes except fringe benefit tax, like final income tax, capital gains tax, and regular income tax. Number 2, foreign income tax if claimed as tax credit. Number 3, estate tax and donors tax. Number 4, special assessment. So, bakit yung 4 na nabanggit is non-deductible? Kasi first, income taxes are not cost of earning income but are impositions on net income accruing only after income is earned. Hence, they are not non-deductible. Foreign income tax is not a cost of earning income. However, if hindi siya na-claim as tax credit, allowed siya to be claimed as a deduction under the NIRC. Special assessment is not a tax expense, but it is a capitalized to the cost of the land.
Okay, sige. Uh, is there anything you want to add pa? Okay. So, hello?
Wala na, sir.
Okay. Sige. So, does anyone want to add on taxes? Oh, si Miss Sogradiel kasi sabi niya kanina. Nabasa ko yung message niya.
For taxes, sir, bali yung deductible lamang is yung basic tax. Hindi na kasama yung mga surcharge, yung mga penalties kasi mawawala na din yung essence ng mga yun, surcharge ng penalties. Tsaka itong mga surcharge or mga penalties kasi unnecessary na sila, so non-deductible. Yun po, sir.
Okay. Sige. Thank you, Miss Sogradiel. Okay. So, for taxes, ano bang rules or what are the rules when it comes to taxes? Okay. Of course, taxes, ano-ano bang deductible? Of course, almost all taxes are deductible with the exemption to the following. Number 1, Philippine income tax. So as long as final siya, capital at saka regular, hindi mo siyang pwedeng i-deduct. With the exemption of fringe benefit taxes. Furthermore, foreign income tax, pag clinim mo na siya as tax credit, ano tong tax credit, i-discuss natin ngayon. Estate and donors taxes, hindi to deductible. At saka special assessments. So, bakit hindi natin i-deduct? Because mostly, income taxes are not cost of earning income but are imposition on net income accruing only after income is earned. So, kailan ba pwedeng i-deduct taxes? Typically if it is connected with your trade or business. So, as long as the tax is incurred in the trade or business, pwede mo siyang i-deduct. So, what are examples of deductible taxes? So, we have percentage tax, excise tax, DST, occupational tax, license, fringe benefit, local taxes, community tax, municipal tax, and foreign income tax. Okay, so ito yung mga items na pwedeng i-deduct. Okay. So, please take note, any surcharge or penalty at saka business taxes such as VAT is not deductible. Okay, so please take note ha. For taxes, ang advice ko dito is try to memorize either kung anong kasali or ano yung hindi kasali. Okay, either one lang naman. So, please take note, only basic tax is deductible. Any surcharge or deficiency interest is not allowed as a deduction. For input VAT, wag na muna nating i-take note to kasi this is hindi to siya masyado or di-discuss na natin to siya sa part 2 natin. So, paano pag nagbayad ka ng foreign income tax? So, ito nga, sabi natin, if you have a foreign income tax, there are two ways na pwede mong i-claim. What do we mean by foreign income tax? This is income tax paid to foreign countries or foreign nations. Okay. So, typically, example, nag-work ka sa abroad at nagkaroon ka ng income doon at meron ka ring income sa Philippines, madededuct rin yung income to. Okay? So, kindly take note of this. So, when you have foreign income tax, dalawa yung methods. Pwedeng deduction or pwedeng tax credit. What do we mean by deduction? Direkta mo siyang babawasan sa income taxes mo. Meanwhile, tax credit is pwede mo siyang babawasan as a portion to your tax due. Okay. So in order for us to understand, okay, let's have this sample problem. Okay, kindly read and try to understand muna. Okay, this problem. Then let's try to answer. I will give you 4 minutes to read and understand. It's 2:21 on my clock. We will be back by 2:25 to answer. Okay, balik lang tayo at basahin nyo at try nyo i-understand yung problem na to. Okay. Sorry natagalan, Sorry guys, natagalan. May dumaan kasi na client. Okay, so na kailangan mo ng i-entertain. Okay, so when it comes to foreign income tax, paano ba natin siya i-deduct? Okay, so again, let's have an illustration. Okay, so please listen ha guys, kasi para maano natin, para maintindihan natin maigi. Okay, again, can I request everyone to turn on their videos? Okay. So, first is meron tayong a domestic corporation had the following results of its operations. Taxable income from the Philippines, 1.8 million. Taxable income from Japan, 1.2. Quarterly estimated income tax paid in the Philippines, 200,000. Income tax paid in Japan, 300,000. So, paano daw pag gagawin natin deduction approach at saka paano pag tax credit? So, ito yung deduction approach. Okay. So, i-add mo lang yung income from Philippines and Japan, meron tayong 3 million. Less yung foreign income tax na 300,000. So, meron tayong taxable income world na 2.7. Multiplied by the corporate tax rate of 30%. So, meron tayong corporate income tax due na 810,000. Okay? Less yung magkano yung binayarin natin na 200,000. So, ang total payable natin is 610. So, if you look at this, very simple lang naman yung deduction approach. Any amounts paid for taxes abroad can be deducted directly from your income taxes. So yung 300,000 minus sa 3 million natin diretso. So this is what we call the deduction approach. Okay? Are there any questions or clarifications? Questions, guys? Hello?
Wala na, sir.
Sir.
Wala. Okay. So, I hope na it's very simple. Paano naman pag tax credit approach? So, paano natin siya i-compute? Okay. So, pag tax credit approach, ganito. So, taxable income, Philippines and world, meron tayong 3 million. Multiply mo yung by corresponding tax rate na 900,000. Tapos, babawasan natin yung tax credit. So, meron kang 200,000 at saka 300,000. So, ang total na babawasan natin is 500 at yung babayaran na lang natin is 400. However, please take note, di natin pwedeng i-claim yung entire amount na 300,000. There's a limit to this, okay? So, paano ba yung limit? How do we set a limit towards the foreign tax credit? Okay. So, ang limit when it comes to the foreign tax credit is computed as follows. Okay. Please take note of this limit, guys. It's very important. So the foreign tax credit shall be lower or shall be computed as the lower of the actual foreign income tax and the following limit. Okay. So whichever daw is lower. So meron kang foreign taxable income divided by world taxable income times Philippine income tax due. Okay. So whichever is lower. So example, in this case, yung sa case natin kanina, yung binayaran niya actual is 300,000. However, the limit is computed as follows. Magkano income niya sa Japan? 1.2 divided by world income na 300,000 at 3 million multiplied by yung corresponding Philippine tax rate na 900. So 300,000 360 ang sagot. Therefore, whichever is lower, 300 versus 360, of course, mas lower si 300. So 300 yung i-claim natin. So this is how we solve for foreign tax credits. Okay? Any questions for the tax credit approach? Questions, clarifications?
Sir,
Yes.
yung 900,000, sir, is yung sa corporate income tax due. Yun na po yan,
Yes.
sir?
Yan yung corporate income
Okay,
tax due. This is the Philippine tax due.
Okay, sir. Sige, thank you.
Any other questions, clarifications? Okay. So, yun, second question is, paano daw pag more than one country tayo? Okay? What if we have more than one country? Or what if ang income natin stems from more than one country? So, how should we compute for this? Okay? So, meron tayong taxable income from the Philippines, 1.8, taxable income from Japan, 1.2, at saka meron doon tayong income from Taiwan, 1 million. So, ang binayaran natin for the quarter, 200. Binayaran natin sa Japan, 300. At binayaran natin sa Taiwan, 200. So actually, if there are two or more countries, okay, there are two approaches. Okay. So, may dalawang approach tayo. Okay, meron tayong single approach at saka meron tayong multiple approach. Okay. So, however, for now, paano ba niyang kinumpute to, ha? Wait lang, ha? Double check ko lang yung original slide. Kasi baka na-delete ko yung yung example niya. Excuse me, ha? Give me a few minutes lang. Double check ko lang yung original na slide. Okay. Okay. Di ata napakita sa problem kung paano i-compute. So actually, when it comes to if you have more than one country, there are two approaches here. First is on a per country basis at merong on a worldly basis. Okay. So, of course, we just follow the same formula. Okay? So, may dalawang approaches tayo. Okay, guys? Meron tayong on a per country basis at saka meron tayong on a worldly approach basis. So, ano bang difference ng dalawa? Okay, so let's have the first one. Okay, tax credit approach per country basis. Okay. Okay. So, again, we still follow the normal formula dito. Copy ko na lang, ha. Ano, nasa baba siya. Okay. So again, the same problem, kukunin natin. Okay, so 1.8 plus 1.2 plus 1 million, meron tayong 400,000. Multiplied by 30%, okay? So meron tayong 1.2. So magkano din babayaran natin? So assuming this is on a per country approach, let us check first kung tama ba yung formula natin. Okay. So on a per country approach is, i-compare mo on a per country basis. Okay. So example, magkano ba yung binayaran natin sa, di ba, ilang countries ba tayo meron? How many countries do we have? Foreign countries do we have? Guys, how many foreign countries do we have?
2, sir.
Dalawa. Meron tayong Japan at saka meron tayong Taiwan. So on a per country approach, ganito yung computation. Okay? So kindly take note na lang, ha. Okay. So pag sa Japan, on a per country approach, i-compute mo siya per country nga. Okay. So example, magkano yung binayaran natin sa Japan? It's 300,000 multiplied by yung limit. Okay. So yung limit is 1.2 divided by 4 million multiplied by magkano yung Philippine income tax due natin, guys? Hello? Hello?
1,200,000, sir.
O, 1,200,000. So anong lalabas na amount?
360.
Oh, it's the same. Whichever is lower. Okay? So saan mas lower? Yung 300. Of course, ilalagay natin yung 300. Okay. Ngayon, gawin natin sa Taiwan. Magkano yung binayaran niya sa Taiwan? Magkano yung actual income tax paid sa Taiwan? Guys, magkano?
1 million, sir. Ay, sorry,
Income tax paid.
200,000.
200. So ngayon, let us compute for the limit. Magkano yung income tax or magkano yung income from Taiwan?
1 million.
Oh, 1 million. So 1 million divided by 400,000 times 1.2. So compute natin, ha. 1 million divided by 4 million times 1.2 million. So ang answer dito is
300.
300. Okay. So on a per income approach, magkano ang i-recognize natin for Taiwan?
200,000, sir.
200,000. Okay. So magkano yung total na tax credit
500.
allowed?
500 po.
So on a
500,000.
per country basis,
Ay, 560.
bakit 560? Magkano yung allowed na credit
Ay.
natin on a one country basis?
500 pala, sir.
500,000. Okay. This is for the per country basis. On a world total or total world basis, paano naman yung computation natin? Okay. Of course, we still follow the same formula. Okay. However, ngayon, on a world basis, ang gagawin mo, it's much simpler. ang gagawin mo na lang is kukunin mo yung total na binayaran natin total sa world. Di ba magkano yung total actual foreign income tax na binayaran sa world? On a worldly basis. It's 500,000. Correct ba? Let's go back to our problem. Nagbayad daw siya ng income tax sa Japan na 300 tapos sa Taiwan na 200. So it's 500,000. Am I correct? Okay. So, 500,000. So, magkano yung total income? It's 2.2 million multiplied by ano to? 2.2 divided by 4 million. So 2.2 divided by 4 million times 1.2. So ang lalabas dito is 660. So magkano yung i-recognize natin? It's 500,000. Okay, correct ba yung ginawa ko? Wait lang, double check ko lang. Baka mamaya. Okay, double check ko lang, baka mamaya may mali ako sa foreign tax credits. Di kasi nilagay sa problem. Okay, wait. Wait. Okay. Wait lang ha. So, saan yun? Okay. So, 500,000. So, actually, usually, i-compare mo whichever is lower sa dalawa. So, i-compare mo on a one country basis at saka on a total country basis, whichever is lower, yun ang i-claim natin. In this case, it's the same. Nasa 500,000. Am I correct? Nasa 500,000 ba? Di ba?
Yes.
Oh. Sir, wait lang. Sir, ang 1.2 million na Philippine income tax due is yung yes. Yes, Miss Sogradiel. Oo. So, in this case, since both the answers of on a per country basis at saka yung one total country basis is the same or the world country basis is the same, so dapat i-recognize natin is yung 500,000. Okay. So, in this case, dapat 500 lang yung i-recognize natin. So, ang magiging actual tax credit is 800,000 pesos. Okay. 800,000 pesos. So, meron tayong income tax payable na magkano? Na 400,000. So, that's it for foreign tax credits. Kindly take note of this one, guys, ha? Okay, again, pag multiple countries, kailangan gawin mo on a per country approach and on a total world approach. Okay? So that whichever is lower between the two, yun ang i-claim mo. Double check ko lang, baka mamaya may mali sa formula ko. Oo. So correct na. On a per country approach tayo. 1.2 ba yun? 1.2. Actually, parang okay. Okay na to. Any questions, guys? Questions, clarifications? Magtanong na kayo ha, tapos mamaya magreklamo kayo, di nyo alam. Magtanong na kayo while I'm here. Okay. Sure kayo ha? Paglalabas to sa exam, dapat alam nyo paano kino-compute to. It's very straightforward naman rin. Okay, so simple math lang naman, you just need to follow the rules. Okay. So next, tapos na tayo sa charitable, tapos na tayo sa bad debts, taxes, losses, interest, and depreciation. So let's go on to the next one. Sanglad, followed by Almisri Usman. Okay. Sanglad.
So the next one, sir, is the contributions to pension trust. So there are two types of employee pension plans, the defined contribution plan and the defined benefit plan. Under defined contribution plan, the employer is merely obligated to make certain amounts of contributions to the pension fund on a regular basis. The amount of benefits to be received by the employees shall be dependent upon the investment performance of the pension fund. So under the defined benefits plan, the employers guarantees the amount of benefits to the employees. The amount of funding which the employer makes to the fund shall be dependent upon the investment performance of the fund. So in a defined benefit plan, the employer's contribution or funding is either or both funding of current service costs or funding of prior service costs. So, current service cost refers to the pension expense of the employer accruing under the term of the pension plan for services rendered by employees during the year. Past service cost refers to the pension expense of the employer accruing in prior years for services rendered by employees before the establishment of the pension fund and additional pension expense accruing in the prior years arising from improvements in the benefits offering the plan. So the requisites of deductibility of pension expense are: first, the employer must have established a pension or retirement fund to provide payment of reasonable pension to employees. Second, the actuarial assumption used by the fund must be sound and reasonable. Third, the fund must be actually funded by the employer. Fourth, the fund asset must be independent from and not subject to the control or disposal of the employer. Fifth, contribution for current service costs is deductible in full. And lastly, the contribution of past service costs is amortized over a period of 10 years. Yun lang po,
Okay.
sir.
Sino to again? Sorry. This is
Ang lad, sir.
Sanglad. Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Miss Sanglad. Okay, for... Wait lang. Okay. Ano ulit yung topics natin? Tapos na natin yung interest, taxes, losses, bad debts, contributions, depreciation, and ano yung bago? Ano yung sa'yo, Miss Sanglad?
Yung contributions to pension trust, sir.
Okay, so pension. Okay, so ngayon, when it comes to pension funds, kailan ba siya magiging deductible? What are the rules? Actually, yung mga sinabi ni Miss Sanglad is correct, di ba? It's very simple lang naman. When it comes to, saan na ba yan? Okay. Wait lang. Okay. When it comes to pension trust, there are two things lang. Dapat number one, there must be a plan that was created. Okay, there are two types of plan naman. We have defined contribution and defined benefit plans. Furthermore, kailangan ma-meet na lang yung mga requirements when it comes to plans. Okay? Kailan ba siya magiging deductible? Of course, kailangan we follow the rules. Okay? Only the current service cost is usually deductible in full. Okay. For now, we just need to follow the rules nito, guys. For computation purposes, we will not delve into or we will not delve into the computation side because this will be further discussed in your financial accounting 6. Okay? Doon pa natin siya i-discuss sa FinAc 6 natin uh, before we go on or before we move on to or before maintindihan natin fully paano kino-compute ang pension trust. Just take note kung ano-ano mga deductible. Typically, only the current service cost is deductible in full. Okay? Any excess funding is attributed to any unfunded past service cost, and overfunding, okay, is considered as a prepaid pension expense. Okay. So, please take note lang, guys. Okay, of the rules and requisites of deductibility for pension expense. We will not be discussing it in full. Again, bakit? Kasi ang computation nito is not in tax talaga, but rather nasa financial accounting 6 natin. When you go to define benefit at saka define pension plan. Okay? So thank you for that, Miss Sanglan. Okay, next. Si Almisri.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Yung next is yung entertainment, amusement, and recreation expense.
Ano na yan? Isabay mo na lahat. Under yan siya sa ordinary and necessary expenses.
So, bale, saan na siya, sir? Yan, no?
Ito lahat. Actually, kasali yan
Expense
siya dito. Sa 1.
sa?
Under siya sa ordinary and necessary expenses.
Okay, sir. Bale, dito ako magsimula sa EAR.
Yes. Hindi. Start with ordinary and necessary expenses. Kasi ear or entertainment and amusement is part of ordinary and necessary.
Okay, sir. Kasi meron man dito sa PPT is yung
Basahin mo
expenses in general.
nauna lang yung ano. Nauna
Okay, sir.
Basahin mo.
Okay. Expenses in general.
Yes.
Okay. Well, examples of other deductible expenses are salaries and allowances, fringe benefits, SSS, GSIS, PhilHealth, HDMF, and other contributions, commissions, outside services, advertising, rental, insurance, royalties, repairs and maintenance, entertainment, amusement and recreation expenses, transportation and travel, fuel and oil, communication, light and water, supplies, and miscellaneous expenses. So, ngayon, dito naman sa entertainment, amusement, and recreation expenses, or EAR expense. EAR expense includes representation expense and or depreciation, rental expense relating to entertainment facilities. Representation expense shall refer to expenses incurred by a taxpayer in connection with the conduct of his trade, business, or exercise of profession in entertaining, providing amusement and recreation to, or meeting with a guest at a dining place of amusement, country club, theater, concert, play, sporting, event, or other similar places. Entertainment facilities refers to a yacht, vacation home, or condominium, and any similar item or real property used by the taxpayer primarily for the entertainment, amusement, or recreation of guests or employees. So now let's go to the requisites of deductibility of EAR expense. First is it must be paid or incurred during the taxable year. Second, it must be directly management and operation of the trade, business, or profession of the taxpayer directly related to or in furtherance of the conduct of his trade, business, or exercise of a profession. Third, it must not be contrary to law, morals, good customs, public policy, or exercise or public order. Fourth, it must not have been paid directly or indirectly to an official or employee of the government or government-owned and controlled corporation or of a foreign government, private individual, corporation, general professional partnership, or similar entity if it constitutes a bribe, kickback, or other similar payments. Fifth, it must have been duly substantiated with adequate proof. The official receipt, invoices, bills, or statements of accounts should be in the name of the taxpayer claiming the deductions. 6. The appropriate amount of withholding tax should have been withheld therefrom and paid to the BIR. That's all, sir.
Okay. So thank you for that, Mr. Usman. So actually, very simple lang naman ang 1. Okay. So as long as it is ordinary and necessary, ibig sabihin ginagamit sa business at kailangan talaga for the function of the business, of course, i-allow ng BIR yung pag-claim ng expense. Okay. So including na nga dito yung ear, yung tenga ba, and entertainment and amusement and recreational expenses. So these are additional expenses, of course, which are required for the conduct of business, especially pag nasa service industry ka. For example, ako, I have my own office. So typically for businesses such as, basta as long as service-oriented ka, you typically required yung ear. Okay? What do we mean by ear? These are entertainment, recreational, and amusement expenses. Typically, these are expenses incurred to bring in new clients. Okay, di ba? Kapag kailangan mo ng bagong kliyente, anong gagawin mo? Kailangan mong i-entertain or kailangan mong mag-provide ng mga other recreational activities when you meet with the client. Of course, there are certain limits when it comes to year. Okay? So, ano ba yung, ano to? What are the limits when it comes to uh, year? Okay, so typically, representation and entertainment facilities, of course, there should be limits kasi pwedeng abusuhin to ng mga companies. So typically, of course, it must follow the requisites for the deductibility. However, there's a ceiling. Okay? Pag engage ka sa sale of goods, ang maximum year mo is 0.5% ng net sales mo. And pag engage ka sa service, ang maximum year mo is 1% of net revenues. Okay? So please take note of these limits kasi it's very important. If you exceed this limit, magiging or madidisallow yung madidisallow yung corresponding year deductions mo or year expenses mo. Okay? So please take note of these corresponding limits. Okay. So thank you for that, Mr. Osman. Okay. So ano nung ba kasali expenses? Ordinary and necessary. So we have the following ordinary and necessary expenses. Kindly take note na lang. Okay. For this one, wala na tong masyadong rules. Okay. It follows na as long as necessary siya at required sa conduct ng business mo, of course, pwede mo siyang i-claim. Okay. So, last is we have depletion and research and development. Okay, si Miss Santos daw sa research and development. Okay. So, Miss Santos, go to research and development. Then we have sa Avedra for depletion. Dalian lang natin. Sige.
So research and development costs, what we mean by research, it is a geared towards discovery of new knowledge or original and planned investigation undertaken by the taxpayer with the prospect of gaining new scientific or technical knowledge and understanding. And the development means it is geared towards determining application of research knowledge which could provide income and
Ako di
benefits for the
makalbat.
of
Ebo.
business,
Okay.
or it is the application of the research findings or other knowledge to a plan or design of production of new or substantial improved materials, device, products, processes, systems, or services before the start of commercial production or use. We have two tax treatments for R&D costs. First, the research and development costs related to capital accounts such as property used in business are capitalized as part of the cost of the property and deducted through depreciation expense. Second, research and development costs are not related to capital accounts are treated as follows. First, we have the outrage expense, or it is the ordinary and necessary expense in the year incurred or paid. Next is the deferred expense. It is amortized over a period not less than 60 months beginning from the month of the taxpayer realized benefits from the R&D expenditures. Yun lang, sir.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Santos. Okay, so actually, R&D is very simple lang naman. Okay, so kailan ba pwedeng i-claim ang R&D or research and development cost? Of course, it's very similar to what is provided in our accounting. Okay, so punta natin yung discussion ng R&D. Okay. So, yun nga guys, kindly if you know, take a look at this, heavy talaga sa theory ang ang taxation. So it's very important that you're familiar with the theoretical side. Okay. So kasi once we get to the computation, ibig sabihin you're familiar with the theoretical side para mapuntahan mo yung computation. So R&D costs, of course, research activities are research and development activities are allowable deductions. Okay. So ano-ano bang or how do we treat research activities or R&D? So research and development costs related to capital accounts such as properties used in business are capitalized. Okay. Meanwhile, R&D costs not related to capital accounts are treated as an outright expense or deferred expense amortized over a period of not less than 60 days or 60 months, beginning the month the taxpayer realizes the benefits from the R&D expenditures. So, ang very simple lang naman, sinasabi niya is that pag di siya related sa capital cost, ibig sabihin, di siya mainly related sa product or sa capitalization ng product, okay? hindi natin siya i-amortize or hindi natin siya i-expense. But if related siya, hindi natin siya i-expense. However, pag hindi siya related sa capital accounts, pwede mo siyang i-expense. What do we mean by capital accounts? These are accounts that are directly related towards the creation or the maintenance or the product itself. Okay, so example, yung COVID, di ba? Nagre-research and development din sila. So typically, as long as the cost is related to the creation or maintenance of the COVID vaccine and required talaga siya, without it, hindi siya magagawa, that will be considered as capital accounts. Meanwhile, if hindi naman siya directly related or subsidiary lang siya or incidental lang siya to the creation of the vaccine, that is what we call not related. Okay, so yung mga hindi daw related, pwede nating i-treat as an outright expense. For further clarification kung anong kasalit hindi, kindly go back to our discussions on R&D costs. Okay, so doon natin siya malalaman. If you go towards your standards sa intangible assets, okay, wait. Cost of standard R&D. 38. Oh. So if you go to PAS 38, doon natin mas makikita ang distinction ng dalawa. Okay. So wait lang ha, double check ko. I think may PowerPoint ako dito sa PAS 38. May PowerPoint ba ako dito? PSA 38. Wala ata. PAS 38, 7. Oh, wala pala ako. Di ko nagawa yung past 38. Okay. Pero nasa book nyo siya, you can check out your books. Okay. For the standard with regards to research and development. Okay, last one, we have depletion. Sinong tinawag ko for depletion?
Hi, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Saavedra? Sige, go ahead.
So sa depletion expense is a provision for the periodic return of capital investments in wasting assets such as minerals, gas, and oil. There are actually three stages of wasting asset activities. Yun. First is exploration period, second is development period, third is commercial period. There are two common rules for both mining and oil operations. Taxpayers engaged in wasting assets shall classify these expenditures into one, cost of acquisition or improvement or of tangible properties, and lastly, intangible exploration, drilling, and development cost. Yun lang po.
Okay, thank you for that. So actually, madali lang naman din sa depletion. Of course, hindi, there's no need to check it out na masyado. Bakit? Kasi di naman masyadong nako-cover or di naman tayo masyado nakaka-encounter ng depletion cost. Okay. So when it comes to depletion, depletion expense is a provision for the periodic return of capital investments in wasting assets such as mineral, gas, and oil. So, ngayon ang tanong is saan ba or paano natin i-determine kung ano ang pwedeng i-claim as an expense? Okay, so taxpayers engaged in wasting assets shall classify the expenditures according to cost of acquisition and improvement of tangible properties and intangible exploration, drilling, and development costs. Okay, so kailangan sinasabi niya dito, i-divide na natin into two. Yung cost ng acquisition ng property at saka yung intangible exploration. Okay, so paano daw natin i-treat ang tangible development cost? Okay, so when it comes to so when it comes to tangible development cost, okay, so paano do treatment natin? Of course, for petroleum operations, properties directly used in petroleum operations is a straight line mo daw or pwede mo gamitin yung double declining balance method. Useful life shall be 10 years or shorter as permitted by the CIR. Okay. Furthermore, for mining operations, pwede daw nating i-claim ang expense if the expected life of the property used in mining is 10 years or less, the taxpayer can use the normal rate of depreciation. If the expected life is more than 10 years, the property can be depreciated over any number of years between 5 and 10 years. Okay. So actually, if you look at depletion, it's very similar to depreciation. Okay, on the rules of depreciation. So sinasabi niya lang dito is pwede mo daw i-claim ang What's this? Ang depletion, typically pag-engage siya, itong cost of acquisition and improvement of property. Okay? So that's it for depletion. So alam na natin ngayon lahat ng mga items which can be claimed as expenses under itemized deduction. Okay. So the next topic is we have specialized allowable deduction. Meron na tayong itemized. Ngayon, we will go on to specialized itemized deduction and net operating carry loss over or NOLCO. But before that, let's have a 10-minute break. It's 3:09, 3:20. Let's come back. Okay? Kasi alam ko, too much information na rin. Okay? So let's have a short break so that makapagpahinga rin kayo. So I'll be pausing the recording. Remind me to turn it back on. Okay. So we're back. Hello, hello. Buhay pa ba? Buhay pa?
Yes, sir.
Bye pa,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. Wait lang ha, si Miss Atokila di daw pwede. Okay. Sige, so let's continue. Sino pa ba din, marami pa ba din nakapag-report or nakapag-present? So marami-rami pa. So let's fast pace. Meron pa tayo around 1 hour. Okay. So ngayon meron tayong specialized allowable itemized deductions and NOLCO. So paano ba natin tong ititreat or paano yung computations niya? So aside from itemized, meron tayong mga special. Okay. So itong mga specialized or ito yung mga other items na inallow ng government, however subject to certain conditions. Okay. So first of all, meron tayong DICPs, tapos ito, di ko na in-order ha, tinalo ko na lang. Okay. So, kindly take note na lang. Okay. Actually, this is a very simplified very simplified yung pagkagawa ko dito. Okay? Wait lang. It's a very simplified way of doing this. 14. Kasi masyadong ikli. 14. Okay. Ayusin ko lang para magandang tingnan. Okay. So, ito yung there are around 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are 14 specialized allowable deductions. So we'll just go through it one by one. I will not call people na muna para mabilisan tayo. Okay, don't worry guys. Sa mga di pa nakapag-recite ngayon, you'll have a chance next meeting. Okay. Sige. So, sino-sino ba ang considered for specialized allowable deduction? So, in this case, ako na muna ako na muna ang magre-recite. So, if you look at this, this is a very condensed, okay, rulings on kailan masasali or kailan siya mako-consider as part of deduction. So, first of all, we have DICPs to, ha? Okay, so we have dividend distribution of REIT. So, anong ibig sabihin ng REIT? These are real estate investment trust. Parang investment body siya wherein pwede ka mag-invest ng pera mo dito. So ang sinasabi dito is that general rule is that dividend distribution is a deduction from retained earnings. For REIT, current loss requires a distribution of 90% of distributable income made. Okay. So ibig sabihin, sinasabi niya na pag may distribution daw ang isang REIT, 90% daw dito ang required. Okay. Walang exception sa rule. Okay. So, ibig sabihin, automatic deduction yung dividend distribution niya. Next, pag nag-distribute ng income ang isang taxable estate or trust. Okay. Any distribution of income by a taxable estate or trust is deductible against the specific taxable estate or trust as a special deduction. So again, guys, itong pinag-uusapan natin are specialized deductions. Ibig sabihin, these are ordinarily not granted to employees or to companies, but rather pending that they meet certain requirements, that's the time na pwede siyang i-claim as a deduction. Okay, so pag may distribution daw ang taxable estate or trust, pwede siyang i-deduct. There are no exemptions towards it. Next, cooperatives transfer of reserve funds. Okay, so general rule. Okay, typically cooperatives are exempt from taxation. Okay, however, any income earned by a cooperative which is not or which comes from an unrelated activity, ibig sabihin, hindi siya related sa purpose ng cooperative, okay, is typically subject to tax. Okay. So, sabi ng tax code, okay, pag magta-transfer ang cooperative ng amount to the reserve fund coming from incomes or coming from items from the unrelated activities, pwede siyang i-claim as a deduction. Okay. To further clarify, let's have an example. Okay. So, ito yung sa cooperatives. Okay. So, typically, again, cooperatives are required to maintain reserves for their protection and stability. Typically, again, cooperatives are exempt from income tax. However, if gagawa sila ng business that is typically unrelated to their main purpose or to their main scope of business, therefore, that's the case or that's the time na masasubject siya to tax. Okay. What happens if that's the case? Okay. So pag masasubject masasubject sa tax, okay? Ay, di pala ako naka-screen share. Sinabi niyo sana. Ha? Okay. So, typically, pag di siya kasali or di siya subject sa... Sorry ha, can you message me kung di ako nakakapag-screen share. Thank you for that. A4. Oo. So, typically, pag cooperatives, again, let me remind na. Okay. Cooperatives are exempt from taxation. However, pag gumagawa sila ng business na di related sa purpose nila, masasubject yun sa tax. However, sabi ng tax code, okay, pag may business ka na unrelated, tapos transfer mo yung pera sa reserve fund, yung transfer mo can be claimed as a deduction from the taxable net income of the cooperative. Okay. To further clarify this, let's have an example. Lowland Co-op summarized the following income and expenses from its all related and taxable unrelated activities. So meron daw siyang following information. Okay. So meron siyang sales, 2 million, 1 million, at saka yung total is 3 million. Okay. So the same for cost of sales, 1.2, 600, at saka 1.8 ang total. So ang total gross income from related is 800, 400, at saka 1.2. So operating expenses is as follows. Meron siyang 500, 150, at saka 650. So ang magiging net income niya is as follows. Okay? Wait lang ha. Nice ko lang. 300,000, 250,000, at saka meron siyang total net income na 550,000. So itong 250,000, ito yung sinasabi nating unrelated activities. Okay. Tapos sabi dito, in compliance with the CDA, Lowland Corp appropriates 10% of profit to the reserves fund. Or, ibig sabihin, 10% daw ng profit na dito, okay, ilalagay sa reserve fund. So, ibig sabihin, yung amount na ilalagay sa reserve fund is considered as another or is considered as a special deduction on top of their allowable deductions. So, magkano ang 10% ng 250,000? Guys? Hello? Ako lang bang nasa class?
25,
25,000,
sir.
sir.
25.
Oh.
25,000, sir.
Is 25. So, 250,000, magkakaroon pa tayo ng specialized deduction of 25. So, ang total taxable income natin is 225 na lang. So, yun lang naman yung sa cooperatives. Okay. Are there any questions on the part ng cooperatives? Okay. So, again, we go back. So, that's it for cooperatives. Next, PWD discounts. Ang rules is that it is similar to senior. Okay. So, sabi dito is that pag nagbibigay ka daw ng discount sa senior citizens at saka sa PWD, isasabay ko na lang ha, they are allowed a discount of 20% on their certain purchases. At pag ikaw ang isang company na allowed sila magbigay ng discount, of course, yung discount na binibigay mo is an allowable deduction. Ibig sabihin, pwede mong bawasan yung discount na binibigay mo sa income nila. So, ang requirements lang that is that it must follow the rules and regulations set forth by the law. Okay, dapat sa kanila lang yung purchase na yun or sila lang ang magko-consume nun. Okay? Dapat may ID na duly validated by the law. Of course, dapat exclusively consumed by the senior lang. Okay? Furthermore, the discount can be only allowed as a deduction from gross income on the same taxable year. Okay? Tapos clearly identified kung kanino binenta. So yun lang naman ang rules when it comes to senior citizens. Okay. So, in order for us to fully understand kung paano ba to sa senior citizens, let's have this sample problem. Okay. Okay. Good Health Drugstore recorded a 1.2 million deductible total expense. Okay. And the following expenses. So meron daw siyang sales sa regular na 5 million at saka senior 1.2. Meron rin siyang cost of sales na ano to? 3 million at saka 800,000. Good Health adopts a policy of giving seniors a 25% discount. Consequently, it granted 300,000 total senior citizen peso discount during the year. So, paano natin i-compute ang mga deductions niya? So, it is computed as follows. So, meron siyang gross sales, 6.2. Cost of sales, 3.8. So, ang total gross income from operations is 2.4. Less yung itemized deduction na 1.2. Ngayon, magkano daw ang senior citizen discount? So, basically, magkano yung total sales mo multiplied by 20%. So, 1.2 times 20% will be 240,000. So, yung total na pwedeng i-claim lamang niya is 1,440,000. Sir, bakit 240 lang ang pwedeng i-claim? Although 25% yung binibigay niya. Again, we cannot give discounts more than what is provided by the law. Actually, pwede naman. However, yung allowable deduction is only maximum up to what is allowed by the law. And ang nakalagay sa batas is that senior shall be given a discount of 20%. No more, no less. So kapag ikaw galante ka, gusto mong dagdagan yung discount niya, that's up to you. So any discounts granted in excess cannot be claimed anymore or cannot be claimed beyond that or di na natin pwedeng i-claim more than that. Okay? So, any questions or clarifications muna? Ganun lang naman. It's the same for PWD. Yung maximum discount na pwede mong i-claim as a specialized allowable deduction is up to 20% of the amount sold to senior citizens. Okay? Questions, clarifications? Guys?
Wala naman, sir.
Wala. Okay, next. Is okay na tayo sa PWD and senior. And lastly is meron tayong insurance company transfers. Okay. So the law requires insurance companies to maintain 40% of premium payments made during the year. Transfer to the reserve fund is a deduction, while additions or release from the reserve funds are taxable. Okay, so paano to? So let's go on to the problem para mas maintindihan natin. Okay. Wait lang ha. Saan na ba yun? Okay. Wait lang. Saan na yun ha? Hinanap ko yung discussions. Okay. Di na pala. Wala na din dito. Basta take note lang. When it comes to insurance companies, any transfers to the reserve fund is an additional deduction. Okay? Meanwhile, releases or additions, okay, to the reserve funds are considered as additions to the income of the insurance companies. Okay? It's very simple. It's similar to cooperatives. They offer it on a fund basis. So kapag magta-transfer ka sa reserve fund, any additions to this is taxable or should be considered as subject to tax. Meanwhile, any transfers to the reserve funds is a deduction. Okay, or transfers to the reserve fund. Or any releases or additions outside the reserve fund is a deduction. Okay. Next, we have the additional. Okay, meron na tayo, tapos na tayo sa first 6, let's go on to the rest. Okay? So, please forgive me again. Minamadalian ko lang kasi we lack time. Okay. So, next is we have, pag mag-hire ka daw ng senior at saka PWD, may additional deduction ka daw on top sa ginagastos mo. So, ano to? Bakit ito ginagrant? The government grants these expenses because they would want to promote the hiring of senior citizens and PWD. So sabi dito, pag mag-hire ka daw ng senior, let's say, ang sweldo niya is 300 pesos, okay? So pwede ka mag-claim ng specialized deduction equal to an additional 15%. So magkano yung 15% ng 300 pesos? So pwede ka mag-claim ng 45 pesos additional deduction kahit wala kang expense. Okay, for that. So this is to encourage people to hire senior citizens. What are exceptions to the rules or what are the requirements? Number one, dapat 6 months na nag-work yung senior and dapat di nag-exceed ng poverty levels yung pay na binabayaran mo sa kanya. Baka mamaya naman milyones yung bayad mo sa senior. Okay. Next, sa PWD, there's an additional 25% on top. Okay, so pag ang bayad mo sa PWD 300 pesos per day, so an additional 25% is 75 pesos. Okay. So ibig sabihin, there's an additional expense na pwede mo i-claim kahit wala kang binabayaran or nire-release na cash. Ang importante lang dito is dapat may proof of work na presented to the DOLE or yung mga companies that would typically provide proof na, of course, reliable or capable of working yung tao na yun at may mga skills siya. Furthermore, dapat may skill-oriented siya or the person has a skill to provide the work. Okay. Next is facility improvement for PWD. So pag nag-improve ka daw or naglagay ka ng facility para sa mga PWD, the government would grant you additional 50% of the direct cost of the improvement. So example, sa KCC, so nagpalagay daw sila ng ramp para sa mga PWD. Ginastos nila is 100,000. So may additional deduction sila na 50%. So ang total na pwede nilang i-claim is 150,000. Next, breastfeeding rooms. Okay. So actually, this is required na by law that there would be breastfeeding rooms. Okay? So kapag may breastfeeding rooms daw, at of course, it follows the necessary requirements set forth by the law, pwede mong i-claim up to twice or more, up to 100%. Okay? Ng actual amount incurred. So example, ang ginastos mo is 1 million for the breastfeeding room. Maganda daw talagang, sobrang ambience, di ba? Maayos talaga. So you could claim another 1 million pesos on top. Anong requirements dito? Of course, it must follows the rules and regulations set forth by the tax code. Okay. Next, legal assistance. Okay, ito, pag lawyer ka. Okay. If you are a lawyer, tapos you provide legal assistance, of course, di ba, gumastos ka rin doon. You exerted effort and time, of course, the tax code would allow you to claim this. So magkano yung additional or allowable deduction mo dito sa free legal assistance is this. It would be allowable deduction from gross income should be equivalent to the amount that could have been collected for the actual performance of the free services or up to 10% of the gross income derived from the actual performance of the legal profession, whichever is lower. So, kapag ang nag-render ka ng free legal assistance, so let's say, lawyer ka na daw. Okay, na-achieve mo na, CPE lawyer ka. Okay. Tapos ngayon, si Pedro lumapit sa'yo. Sabi ni Pedro, sir, kinasuhan po ako. Pwede pong patulong. Okay, sabi mo, sige, tutulungan kita. So, since tinulungan mo si Pedro, sabi ng tax code, okay, pwede mong i-claim as expense yung tulong mo sa kanya. However, magkano yung i-allow natin? Of course, yung sabi ng tax code, pwede mong i-claim is kung kapag chinarge mo ba si Pedro, okay, magkano yung makokolekta mo sa kanya. Okay. Versus sa gross income na makukuha mo kay Pedro, 10% nun. Whichever is lower sa dalawa, yun ang pwede mong i-claim as a taxable expense. Ang importante dito is that, anong exception dito or the requirements is that number one, this must be approved by the DOJ and PAO, and of course, exclusive to sa 60 hours mandatory free legal assistance ng Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Okay, kapag lawyer ka kasi may required daw silang 60 hours of free legal assistance na dapat na ibigay. Okay, so kapag magis ka talaga, you would want to give more, of course, bibigyan ka ng allowable deduction ng court or ng tax code. Next, adopt a school program. O ito, pag nag-adapt ka ng school, ibig sabihin, you have a school as a beneficiary, nagpro-provide ka ng benefits, sabi dito, i-allow ka ng additional 50% deduction of the contribution. So example, sobrang rich mo daw, okay, wala ka nang magawa sa pera mo, so inadapt mo ang Tetuan Elementary School dito sa Zamboanga. You donated 100 million pesos. Okay. So, provided that you meet the necessary requirements, If you meet the necessary requirements, therefore, may additional na 50% na allowable deduction ka on your contribution. So, nag-contribute ka ng 100 million, 50% nun is 50 million. So, you could claim a total of 150 million. Anong requirement? Of course, number one, you must have been operating for more than 1 year, and of course, may credible track record ka as a company. Mahirap naman magpapadonate ka, tapos mamaya wala ka palang updates or wala kang kakayahan. So that would be very difficult on the part of the company. Next is productivity incentive bonus. Okay. So ano tong productivity incentive bonus? Typically, companies provide this bonus to their clients. So, ano nangyayari sa productivity incentive bonus is that, okay, sinasabi mo, okay, if you are performing well, bibigyan kita ng additional bonus. If you provide this bonus to your companies or to your clients, you will get an additional total 50% of the total productivity bonus given to employees under the program. So, ibig sabihin, since you are performing well, okay, binigyan mo siya ng PIB, sabi ng government, okay, you can claim an additional 50% of that PIB. Furthermore, pag nagbibigay ka ng test sa training sa employees, may additional 50% ka of the total grant for local trainings and special studies. This is so that you could improve the quality of your employees. And lastly is pag may training expense, this is related only to jewelry companies. Okay, so kapag may training expense ka sa isang jewelry companies, there's an additional deduction of 50%, okay, in the training schemes. There are no exceptions here. Okay, so that's it for specialized allowable deduction. Okay, so kindly take note na lang of the specialized rules kasi we cannot discuss everything na. Okay, so sinamarize ko naman lahat ng mga important points. Okay, so next, okay, NOLCO. What is NOLCO? Okay, what is NOL at saka what is NOLCO? Okay? Ako nang tatawag De La Peña. What do we mean by NOL and NOLCO? UG. Wala siya dito. Does anyone know bakit siya wala?
Kasi from what I know, sir, nagkalagnat yun siya, sir. Kaya, like, parang...
So he's sick.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for informing me. Okay, so ano na lang, balat-bat.
Yes, sir.
Sige, what is
NOL and NOLCO, sir?
Yes.
NOL or net operating loss, sir, yan ba no?
Yes.
Pertains to the excess of allowable deductions over the gross income from business or exercise of a profession during a taxable year. Yun ang NOL. Ang NOLCO, net operating loss carryover, pertains to the amount of net operating loss that is allowed by the law to be carried over as a deduction against available net income in the following 3 years.
Okay, sige. Thank you for that. So actually, net operating loss is the loss that arises from your operations. Meanwhile, net operating loss carryover means that yung loss mo na kinary over mo sa succeeding year. Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Balatbat. Okay. Next question is, what's the rationale of NOLCO? Ay, hindi pala question. So bakit pala tayo naglalagay ng NOLCO? So actually, NOLCO is intended to allow the taxpayer to recoup his losses before taxation goes full swing. Without NOLCO, income taxation would result in recoveries of lost capital. Okay. So actually, typically, ang NOLCO, binibigay natin to sa mga typically new companies. Okay. It must be noted that a net operating loss is technically different with a NOLCO. A NOL may occur but may not be carried over Hence, no NOLCO. However, a NOLCO can exist even without a prior year net operating loss. Okay. So, let's have an illustration. Okay. So, assume that the following operating losses or profits for the year of the taxpayer. So, year 1, may loss daw siya na 400,000, year 2, 300,000, year 3, 200,000, and year 4, 20,000. So there is no tax for years 1 to 3 because there is a loss. However, to tax the minimal profit of year 4 would be unfair. Diba? Unfair naman, lugi na siya sa year 1, 2, and 3. So therefore, sabi ng tax code, yung not operating loss mo na 400, 300, at saka 200, pwede mong i-deduct against your net operating gains for the next 3 years. Okay. So yung year 1, pwede mong i-deduct up to the year 4. Year 2, pwede mo i-deduct up to the year 5. And year 3, pwede mo i-deduct up to year 6. Okay, so pwede mo siyang daw i-deduct for 3 years. So next question, how is net operating loss computed? Posadas.
Yung null ko, sir, ma-compute siya if yung gross income subject to regular tax less yung total deductions including null ko from prior year's deduction incentive under special law. Tapos yun yung net operating loss carryover po or null ko.
Okay. So NOLCO is computed as follows. So meron tayong gross income subject to tax less total deductions excluding NOLCO from prior years and deductions incentives under special laws. Okay, so basically kung may deductions ka, kung anong lalabas is nagkakaroon na tayo ng net operating loss carryover. So ito din i-carry over natin sa succeeding years. So deduction incentives are not actual operating incentives or operating expenses. They are not actual costs. Hence, they must be excluded in the net operating loss carryover. Okay? So, the carryover of deduction incentives is not legally warranted. Okay? Warranted. Prior year NOLCO, which is also a deduction incentive, cannot be deducted in the measurement of the current year NOLCO. Okay. So, in order for us to fully understand, let's have this problem. Nexus Corporation reported a net loss during the year. Gross income, subject to regular tax, 1.5. Regular itemized deductions, 1.2. Special deductions, 700. And deduction incentives under special laws, 300,000. So, ang total expense niya is 2.2. Net operating loss is 700,000. So question is magkano din yung net operating loss na i-carry over? So in order for us to compute, madali lang. Gross income less regular itemized deduction and special deductions. So 1.2 less plus 700, so 1.9. Less na 1.5, ang net operating loss natin is 400. So itong deductions under special law na 300,000, again, hindi to kasali at saka any NOLCO from prior years. Okay. So question, who can claim NOLCO? Mohammed.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
So all taxpayers subject to tax or taxable income, whether at the regular income tax or at preferential rate, can deduct NOLCO. Taxpayer who are exempt enjoying a tax holiday subject to tax on gross income or those subject to final tax cannot deduct NOLCO.
Okay, thank you for that. So sino-sino ang qualified at sino-sino hindi? So we have the following. Wait lang. Okay. Excuse me. So, who can claim NOLCO? So, all taxpayers subject to tax on a taxable income, whether at regular or at preferential tax rate, can deduct NOLCO. So, lahat daw pwede. So, typically, taxpayers are exempt, enjoy the tax holiday or subject to tax on gross income, and those subject to tax on final tax cannot deduct NOLCO. So, as long as regular income tax ka, regardless kung preferential rate or regular, pwede ka mag-deduct ng NOLCO. Okay. So to emphasize the rules regarding the measurement of taxable net income on NOLCO, okay, we have the following rules. So kindly take note of these rules. Okay. So ano ba tong rules? Number 1, cost of sales or cost of services and regular allowable deductions are fully deductible. Special incentive deductions are only deductible to the extent of the net income before incentive deductions, and NOLCO prior years are deductible only to the extent of the net income after special incentive deductions but before NOLCO. Okay. So, paano yung treatment ng NOLCO? How is NOLCO treated? Wait lang. Sige, Guadalupe. Tapos ka na ba?
Wala pa po, sir.
Sige, Guadalupe.
So NORCO is treated, operating loss carryover is treated as a separate item of dedication, deduction to next 3 consecutive taxable years to the extent of the available net income before NORCO deduction in those periods.
Okay. So, thank you for that. Okay. So, treatment of NOLCO is as follows. Okay. So, net operating loss carryover, bakit po MOT? Net operating loss carryover is treated as a separate item of deduction for the next 3 years. So, pwede mo siya daw i-deduct for the next 3 years. Okay? Against any available net income before NOLCO deduction in those periods. In order for us to fully understand, we have the problem. Okay. So, let's read the problem and let's answer. I'll give you 3 minutes to read and I'll call someone. Sige, Galvez will answer. Okay, 3 minutes guys. I'll give you 3 minutes and let's answer. So, magkano yung net income for each year given na may NOLCO? Okay. Wait lang ha. 3 minutes. Okay, let's answer. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So, sino ba yung sinabi ko? Sino tinawag ko?
Ako po, Sir Galvez.
Galvez, sige.
Sir, so as you can see sa chart, tatlong, my years 2017 to 2020. So my net income of negative 200,000, which is nakalagay din NOLCO, which is net operating loss carryover. So ibig sabihin, for the next 3 years, yung loss na yun, pwedeng i-deduct sa mga balances for the next 3 years. So since sa 2018 may income na 50,000, ima-minus yung 200,000, which is ang magiging balance na is magiging 150, then zero na yung sa 2018. And same sa 2019, yun lang syempre ang gagawin. Pero yung balance now is 150 na kasi naka-minus na yung 50,000 na income galing sa 2018. And then, pagdating sa 2020, sir, bale yung natirang deduction na NOLCO balance is 40,000, which is less net income na 250,000, which is ngayon may adjusted na net income of 210,000 for 2020, sir.
Okay, thank you. So actually, very good. Okay, so each year, yung NOLCO natin, pwede mo i-deduct until for 3 years. So since 200,000 NOLCO natin, for 2018, may income ka na 50,000, pwede mo i-deduct in full. So matitirang NOLCO balance is 150. For 2019, 110 yung net income, less 110 na NOLCO. Since 150 pa naman, so matitirang balance is 40. And yung remaining balance na 40, if you full deduct sa 2020 na 250,000, so matitirang net income is 210. Okay. So wala nang sobrang net income in this case. So any unused NOLCO after 3 years will expire. Okay. At hindi na siya pwedeng i-credit sa future. Okay. So that's it for NOLCO. So what are the requisites for NOLCO? Libre.
So, requisites for deductibility of NOLCO. Number 1, taxpayer must not be exempt from income tax during taxable year when the NOLCO was incurred. Number 2, there has been no substantial change in the ownership of the business or enterprise.
Okay, thank you for that. So actually, dalawa lang yung requirements natin when NOLCO. Number 1, of course, di ka exempt sa income. Di ba kapag exempt ka sa income tapos nagkaroon ka ng NOLCO, of course, that is your own fault na. Di ka na nga taxable, di mo rin pwedeng gamitin na yung corresponding NOLCO because that would be too unfair and unreasonable on your part. Of course, number 2 is that there must be no substantial change in ownership. Okay. When we say substantial, dapat 75%, there must be no change of at least 75% ng value ng company. Bakit? Kasi typically, pag nagkaroon ng substantial change, yung corresponding loss does not already represent that of the person na kung saan or those persons na kung saan sila nagkaroon ng loss, but rather it represents of another person na. So if that's the case, di mo na pwedeng i-claim yung corresponding NOLCO. Okay. So, carry over NOLCO. What are the rules in carry over NOLCO? Sino? Not sure.
So, ang rules in carryover of NOLCO, first is NOLCO is claimable in a first-in, first-out fashion. Second, NOLCO can be claimed only up to the extent of the business net income in the next 3 years. Prior year NOLCO cannot be deducted against a subsequent year net operating loss. Third, any NOLCO which remains unused at the end of the 3-year prescriptive period will expire.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, yun lang naman ang requisites for NOLCO. It's very simple. Okay. So, again, first is that NOLCO is claimable, PIPO tayo. So, kung anong una, siya ang unang dapat na i-deduct. NOLCO can only be claimed up to the business net income in the next 3 years. So, pag lampas na, wala na. Any NOLCO which remains is after the 3 years will expire. So, let's have an example. Okay. I'll be calling on, wait lang ha. Let's have 3 minutes, basahin nyo, tapos i-answer na natin. I will not call someone for this one. Okay? 3 minutes. Jadi loko kita, multitask kita. Nanti, aling cash lang ito. Para sabi kita pa talaga. In and out. May kaklasa? Dinner ka? Lama ko na, hindi, deposit sa Lama ko na, tablaman dinner kita. Dito. Ano lang kita? Kaya for, okay. Let's answer. A corporate taxpayer reported the following from 2016 to 2020. So, meron siyang gross income, 400, tapos deductions, 500. So, may null ko siya na 100, 2017, 130, 2018, 30, 2019, 60, and 2020, 160. So, taxable net income dito sa 2017, wala. Di natin pwedeng gamitin yung null ko kasi loss pa rin. Same for 2018. So, we would start claiming null ko in 2019. Okay. Again, the same lang kasi wala pa rin. Loss ka pa rin. So, wala. Di natin pwedeng i-claim. Okay. Loss pa rin tayo dito. So, it's still the same. In this case, may null ko pala tayo dito. So, bakit to may null ko? May null ko ba to? Or, actually, it's a gain. Sorry. Gain pala to. Akala ko loss. Okay. So, 2018, pwede na daw natin i-claim yung null ko. Okay. So, 2016, 2017, walang null ko or di natin ma-carry over because zero pa. So, 2018, pwede na natin i-claim. Since there's a net income, pwede natin i-claim yung galing sa 2016. Mauuna. Again, first in, first out tayo. So, ang null ko balance natin, 70 from 2016, 130 pa rin from 2017. 2018, zero ang income natin. For 2019, ang mangyayari is may income tayo na 60. Again, mauuna yung sa 2016. So since may sobra pa na 70, so yung buong amount na 60 manggagaling sa 2016. So may 10 pa na balance. However, starting next year, etong 10 na balance will be no longer allowed kasi mag-expire na siya. So plus may 130 pa tayo from 2017. Okay, so pagdating ng 2020, ang 2016 din na natin makiklaim kasi nag-expire na siya. Am I right? However, may remaining balance pa tayo na 130 from the 2017. Tapos yung income natin for the 2016 is 130. So, ibig sabihin, pwede natin i-claim in full. So, ang net income natin sa year na to is 30 na lang. So, 160 less 30, magiging 30 na lang. Okay. Gets ba guys? Naintindihan nyo ba yung concept ng null ko? Guys, hello?
Somehow, sir. Okay lang naman.
Ano lang naman siya, kini-carry over, parang nangyayari is yung loss, kini-carry over mo lang siya sa succeeding years. Please take note pala, starting 2020 due to COVID, any arising null ko from COVID for this year will be 5 years. Okay? Take note, again, any null ko from COVID is good for 5 years. Okay? Kasi maraming companies ang nagkaroon ng null ko due to COVID, di ba? If mga parents yung may business, I really understand na magkakaroon talaga sila ng loss because of COVID. So I hope that maintindihan kayo on the concepts of specialized allowable deductions and null ko. Okay, so what's the null ko for individual? Ano to, Ms. Sugiyama, may question ka?
Wala, sir.
Okay.
Akala ko mag-receipts.
Di ba tapos ka na?
Wala pa, sir.
Wala pa pala.
Kanina po ako, sir.
Sige, paano yung null ko for individuals, Ms. Sugiyama?
Okay. Null co refers to an operating loss from business or exercise of a profession. For individuals who are mixed income earners, null co is measured by separating compensation income from business or professional income following the income classification and globalization rule. Yan, sir.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Sugiyama. Okay. Ngayon, when it comes to null ko, okay, for individuals, again, net operating loss from business lang talaga siya. So typically, this is only applicable for income tax earners or income earners. Okay. So pag may compensation income ka, kailangan nating i-separate. Only from business lang talaga ang pwede nating i-classify. Okay. So what's the difference between NOLCO and net capital loss carryover? Toralba.
Sa NOLCO, sir, it is deductible against available net income in the next 3 years of operation. While yung net capital loss carryover is deductible only up to the extent of the net capital gain in the immediately following year.
Okay, thank you for that. So ang main distinction ng dalawa is that NOLCO is deductible for the next 3 years against any net income. Meanwhile, yung net capital loss from the sale of capital gains to ha. So don't worry. Yung concept ng net capital loss, i-discuss natin most probably next week or next week. Okay? So any corresponding net capital loss carry over will only be claimed against net capital gain. So di ka pwedeng lumampas. Okay? So always limit mo sa net capital loss mo is zero. Maximum is zero talaga. Okay. So di na pwedeng lumampas yung ano mo dito. So up to the net capital gains lang. So pag may gain ka na 100, may loss ka na 120, 100 lang yung allowable na capital loss na i-claim mo. Okay. Ngayon, okay, so we're done with the concept of NOLCO and standardized deduction or special deduction. So ngayon, we'll go on to optional standard deduction. So what is OSD? Anyone? Sampang.
So, sir, OSD is in lieu of itemized deduction, including NOLCO, allowable under the NIRC and special laws. Under the OSD, the allowable deduction of the taxpayer is simply presumed as a percentage of gross sales or receipt for individuals and gross income for corporations. There is no need to support every item of expense. The OSD, however, does not relieve the taxpayer of the responsibility to deduct withholding tax on certain income payments as required by the NIRC.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Sampang. Okay. So when it comes to OSD, this is another form of deduction that is allowed. Okay. Wait lang. So, typically, sino bang pwede mag-claim ng OSD? OSD is a proxy for optional standardized deduction. As a rule, all taxpayers who are subject to tax on their taxable net income can claim OSD. So, typically, lahat daw, except for the following. Pag NRA ETB ka, di ka pwede mag-claim ng OSD at saka taxpayers mandated to use itemized deduction. Okay. Sino bang mga taxpayers mandated to use standard or itemized deductions? We have the following. Okay, corporations, individual taxpayers who are required to use, and we have non-resident alien not engaged in trade or business. So kindly take note na lang nito, sino-sino ang hindi required. Okay. So, what are the corresponding OSD rates? O ito, madali lang talaga. Redonya.
So for individual taxpayers, 40% of total sales revenues or receipts or fees. Those selling goods under the accrual basis, 40% of gross sales. Those selling services under the cash basis, 40% of gross receipts. See, those selling services under the accrual basis, 40% of revenue. And number two is the corporate taxpayer with 40% of gross income.
Okay, actually it's basic lang, 40%. Okay, ganun lang naman talaga, it's 40%. Ang important factor lang is 40% ng ano. So for those under accrual basis, it's 40% of gross sales. For those under cash basis, 40% of gross receipts. And for those under cash basis na services, 40% of revenue. Pag corporate income taxpayer ka, it's 40% of your gross income. So kindly take note of these distinctions ha. Okay. So, what's the main difference between OSD and individual? Okay. So, ano ba yung individual OSD? So again, individual OSD is, since the OSD of individuals is based on gross receipts or gross sales, it is deemed to replace all items of deductions against gross receipts or gross sales in computing net income. So individuals using OSD shall use BIR Form 1701A in filing their annual tax return. Okay. Meanwhile, for corporate OSD is based on gross income. It is deemed to replace all items of deductions from gross income in computing net income. Okay. So kindly take note of this distinction. So, in order for us to identify kung sa anong nire-replace ng OSD, so pag individual, i-replace niya yung cost of sales, regular allowable deduction, specialized allowable deduction, at saka yung NOLCO. So, pag individual ka, i-replace niya basically lahat. Meanwhile, pag corporate ka, ang i-replace niya lamang is yung itemized, special, at saka yung NOLCO. Meanwhile, yung cost of sale of cost or service hindi matatanggal or hindi i-replace ng OSD. Gets ba, guys? So, yun
Yes,
lang ang
sir.
main distinction. Okay? OSD replaces everything for individuals. Meanwhile, OSD only replaces itemized, special, at saka NOLCO. For cost of sale or cost of service, pwede mo pa rin i-deduct. Okay. Ruales, tapos ka na ba?
Sir, wala pa, sir.
Okay. Ruales, Nujang, wala pa, no? Then Go and Garcia.
Yes,
Sige.
sir.
So we're almost done
Sir,
naman.
si Go daw po, sir, nadi-disconnect po.
Sige. Go. Yung nga nakikita ko, nadidisi siya. Okay. Tapos wala siyang sound. Okay. Sige. Sige. What are the rules on determination of OSDs for individual? Garcia.
So, yung rules on determination, sir, for RSD for individual taxpayer. So, as clarified, sir, sa RR 16/2008, yung gross sale included siya, sir, only sa sale contributory to income subject to regular tax. So, since yung sales returns, allowances, and discounts, hindi siya kasali sa contributory sa income, so, dapat, sir, deduct siya sa total recorded sales, accounting gross sales. So, in short, sir, the tax concept of gross sale is the accounting concept of net sales.
Okay. So, as clarified, gross sales include sales contributory to income subject to regular tax. However, since sales returns, allowances, and discounts are not contributory to income, they must be deducted from the total. Okay. So, in determination for SD, based siya sa gross sales. However, when we talk about gross sales, ang sinasabi niya dito is net sales na daw. So, ibig sabihin, yung OSD is mo-multiply mo na lang sa net sales. Okay. Meanwhile, gross receipts means magkano yung actual na ni-receive mo, constructively or actually. So, when we talk about gross receipts, it means the amount earned during the taxable year. Okay. So, paano natin i-compute itong formula? So, we have net sales, revenues, receipts, and fees. Add other taxable income not subject to final tax. We will have total sales multiplied by the OSD. So, magkakaroon tayo ng OSD deduction. Okay. So, in order for us to understand, we have the sample problem. Okay. So, we have 5 minutes. Let's have a 5-minute break. Let's answer. Okay. So, there are 2 questions, accrual basis of accounting and cash basis. So, Rowales, give me the accrual. Nojang, give me the cash basis.
Sir, wala po si Nojang ngayon, sir.
Absent.
Yes po. Nasa
Okay.
hospital na po, sir.
Bakit? Ano nangyari?
Yung ano po, sir, yung nag-watcher po siya.
Okay. Sige. Oo nga, same last time.
Yes
Sige.
po.
So, let's have a 5-minute break. Answer lang natin yung accrual. Sige ha, 5-minute break tayo. Tapos after 5 minutes, let's answer, then we're done. Okay. Tomorrow, Auntie, on the 2. What's the schedule tomorrow? Paga 2. In cash, kabar mabili lang to kanila. Kabar el mayors, siya nakita nuevo uno, akal di Dropbox, no? Di STK, di Sir Roel, di RMC. RMC. Okay, kasi sila BIR sir, then DOR. Sinya. Kabar el ano pagalit, siya kita nuevo client. Ha? De ES Media. Hindi ka di estas ni Slav. Ha? Si ES Print Media. Na Atilano, kaya talaga ito punta siya ka na Espinola. Thank you. 21 na galit na. Hindi ko rin man. Hindi ko rin ito dyan po. Kabady, ano, January ka pa, kabady klase. Dito. Thank you. Anda tanti, sige. Magdidali ba lang ang billing di ano no? Di Wednesday? Oh, di mo. Kubra to ko nila bla to sir. Kaya para pwede siya pagka last ang billing ka to. Ay, di ka tapakadaan sir. Hindi, si Chen ni Sen, tapaga mo kasi sir. Chen na bisin dito talibasin. Oh. Pero kubra nga to ko nila years kaya bla to mo na yung masya kita sir. Oh. Na kasi si Abla Lebira lang next time siya kag sila hunto amount. Habla to, mga 15,000 say. Pregunta rin 40-15 plus siya na pamamagay. Pati sedula nung yun, sa part ng pagali sedula. Oo, pero kubra to kaya sedula. Kaya may pwede kubra sedula. Sige, auntie, cuidado. Yan daw si Videos, si Wacho. Yung pagkakabadi si meeting. Asa daw kag si Christian? Christian. Yes. Ito ko para pirma de adso. Hindi, ano ka na de biomed? Sige, kudaw. Okay. Sige, let's answer. Miss Ruales.
Hello, sir.
Sige. Compute for the OSD under accrual basis lang.
So, under the...
Hello? Lag ka, lag.
Yes. Yes, sir. So under, hello, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sorry. So under accrual basis of accounting, yung professional fees or the revenue which is 4,500,000, i-add natin yung taxable income na, from operations na 200,000 from the fees from semester. Tapos ang total revenues is 4,700,000. I-multiply siya sa OSD rate na 40%. Tapos yung total is 1,880,000 na optional standard deductions. Yun po yun siya, sir.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So when it comes to accrual basis of accounting, okay, professional fees 4.5 plus fees from seminars na 200, 4.7 times 40%, makukuha nating OSD is 1,880,000. So itong other ano dito, collections during the year, 500,000, hindi din siya kasali or hindi na natin siya i-take note. But rather, the entire amount ang kailangan natin consider, whether constructively or actually received or not. So yun ang ibig sabihin ng gross receipts. Okay? So kahit yung billings na 4.5, kahit di mo pa yung natanggap, okay, or 3.5 lang natanggap, yung entire amount ang i-recognize natin. Meanwhile, yung 500,000 na past audit fee, this has already been charged. And therefore, di na natin pwedeng isali. Okay? Interest on bank deposits, dito kasali because this is charged as, ano to? This is charged as, ano tawag dito? Sale of, ano to? Final tax to siya, subject siya to final tax. Meanwhile, sale of equipment, okay, hindi rin to siya isasali. Okay. So, ang total natin is 1,880,000. So, thank you for that. Okay. So, pag i-compute natin yung taxable income, it's as follows. So, taxable compensation, 300,000. Net sales, 5 million plus 200,000, 4.7. Wala ng cost of sales plus yung gain. Okay. So, yung gain on sale of equipment is non-operating taxable income. Okay. So, 4,750 less 1,880. So, ang total net income natin is 2,870 plus yung 300,000 is 3,170. Okay. So, that's it for our discussions this week. So, heads up lang. Wait lang ha. Before we dismiss the class, heads up lang. Di ako magbibigay ng quiz on Monday, but rather magbibigay ako ng take-home work. At related siya sa discussions natin next week. Okay? Again, it's not related to our discussion this week, but rather it's a comprehensive problem already. You could work out it as a class, okay, magtulungan kayo, i-answer natin next week. Okay? Isasend ko siya by Sunday siguro. Again, ipopost ko siya sa Sunday, tapos at i-discuss natin siya sa class by 27. 28 pala. So, our topic for next week is chapter 14 lamang. Chapter 14. Again, our discussion for next week is chapter 14 only. Okay? Any questions, guys? Any clarifications? Hindi siya sasubmit, i-discuss lang siya sa klase. Okay. Any questions, clarifications? May tanong ba? Okay. Since wala na, I'll see you when I see you on Thursday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.